around. I used to wear baggy clothes to speak with a deep voice. I was in 4th grade because I just thought the boys were cooler. My mom didn't shave my head and call me Michael. Teachers didn't call me Michael. I was still Candace. And then a couple of years later, I went through puberty, and suddenly I thought the guys were cute. Right, and that's what's being disrupted now that they're trying to normalize allowing children to go under hormone therapy when they haven't even hit puberty, or allowing these children to say that they're different people. It's confusing.
That's really going to make the black community snap.
I didn't know about any community. We're not just talking
more
about
black.
More
There's
black.
more.
Yeah, black
white people are
really.
More. Okay, my son's a girl.
Yeah, no. Black moms,
people
you're not calling.
You're
not calling my son. I don't have a son yet, but let me find out that some school is calling my son by a name that I didn't give him. Black moms will show up 100%.
I would argue that the whole trans movement is the end of black support of the left. They pushed it too far.
Right.
I think a lot of the left sees blacks as their pets, and they're going to lose their pets. Their pets are going to start misbehaving now.
They do treat us like pets.
No, but when you talk about just as a Christian, for me, I begin with the notion that anybody, any gender, creature with a language made in the image and likeness of God, they have a sanctity. That's why I say precious trans folk. They got the same sanctity that I have, that my daughter, my son, anybody else has.
I agree, 100%.
And that's just a spiritual truth that I hold on to, whether it's popular or unpopular. I'm just going down with it.
I agree with
you. But then when you move into society, you see, I don't want any kind of social engineering.
That's what that's what's happening.
You're getting folks saying, okay, this is the only way to go. No,
that's what's happening.
See, I don't know about that. If I saw that kind of thing, I'd be critical of it.
I'll send you something on it a bit.
But it's so easy to fall into a kind of dehumanizing mode. And I come from a people who've been dehumanized so easily. Black folk, brown folk, poor whites, gays, lesbians, Jews, Muslims. We got long histories of being easily dehumanized.
Yes,
and
I agree with you. But
normalized.
when we're so determined to be tolerant, we tend to tolerate intolerance, especially from Islam. Like everyone talks about Charlottesville and Heather Heyer, obviously a catastrophe.
Yeah, and I was with Heather just 20 minutes before she died.
You were?
Oh yeah, I was right there.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I was standing right there. The neo-Nazi brothers were spitting on us, telling us off and so. We were singing "This Little Light of Mine." You know, I'm not clergy, but they were clergy. I'm just Christian. I'm a lay person. And we were right there, and Heather was right on the side. We were talking just 20 minutes before she was hit. You see, and she was just a magnificent. A human being, very young, very committed.
But this whole concept of fighting
but
hate, which we all advocate,
can be used, though, brother. I mean, Islam's got fascist versions.
But we hear so much about this stupid Nazi hate crap that I'm just sick of hearing about. No one talks about the West Side Highway.
The West Side Highway?
Well, yeah, where 6 people were killed, 6 or 8 were killed by a jihadist. No one talks about Fort Hood, about the beheading in Oklahoma, about the Orlando shooting at Pulse nightclub. About San Bernardino. We've heard about Heather Heyer literally more than all of those other victims combined. And every time you see these hate groups where they're out there to stop hate and hate watch and SPLC, ADL, it's just skinhead, Nazi, zero jihadists, zero jihadi training camps.
And quite frankly, I agree with you. And I think that what really, gets really, well, some black people can get very upset with me because I say, you want me to focus on white supremacy when we know that 95% of black Americans that are killed by other black people.
19 a day.
95%.
Yeah.
So my chances, I should be more afraid sitting next to a black man. All right, then if you're looking at just statistics. People don't like that, because that's the truth. They don't like that. Oh, no, it feels better. Let's focus on the white supremacy. Let's focus on this area, which basically never happens if you're looking at statistics, because you don't want to talk about fixing our communities. And when I spoke at the White House 2 weeks ago, I spoke about Tyshawn Lee.
It does happen.
Yeah, but 95%
disproportionate
every year, of black Americans that are killed in a homicide event are killed by other black people. And that's not even including Hispanics. So maybe another 3% were killed by Hispanics, who knows? We're talking about a slither of people, black Americans, that are killed by whites in this country annually. And yet the focus on it would make you think it's happening every single day. That's my problem, because you want to know what that says? That says that they're purposely having us focus on things they're never going to fix our community, okay? If we want to talk about fixing our communities, you got to talk about gang violence. Because and I spoke about that at the White House, Tyshawn Lee, a 9-year-old kid who got shot point blank, lured into an alley and shot point blank because of gang violence, because someone had a hit against his father, so they decided to kill his son. The guy was laughing in court. everybody turns away from it. We're not going to talk about it because, oh, it was happening in our community. Let's instead go out and protest in the strange event that a black American gets shot by a police officer unarmed. And this is the crap that I say. They have you looking at something that's never, ever, ever going to matter, right? That's never going to fix anything because they know that we're slaughtering ourselves at a faster rate, and that's what they want.
But two things. One is that there is a difference between a policeman who kills a person and a citizen killing another citizen. Because the police represent.
True, but they're killing 19 a day.
No. I mean,
the blacks
numbers,
are like
absolutely.
10 a year.
And we have to speak the truth.
Yeah,
And so the truth that you talk about in terms of disproportionately black on black violence is something that you have to speak to. But the second point is this, though, that there are a number of folk in the black community who both talk about it and try to organize against the black on black violence.
So why don't they have the platform that these Black Lives Matter groups have?
Well, one is because you got a liberal media that does not want to put a spotlight on black people organizing themselves and dealing with problems inside of the black community.
Because that would help us.
Well, I mean, that's a certain white supremacist sensibility.
Right, and that's what I say. So agree.
Absolutely, but that does not mean, though, that you don't want to keep these police accountable when they shooting these young folk day in and day out.
Accountable. They go
Not
to
day in
jail.
and day
They
out.
lose their
They
pension.
go to jail. You got one going to jail, brother. You got one going to jail out of all
Let's
these
correct
shootings.
the record. This is not happening day in, day out. In the year where they made it seem like it was the absolute worst, in 2016, 16 unarmed black men were shot and killed. By rate, more white men were killed by.
It's 1,000
But also,
in the country.
unarmed,
white men
unarmed can mean was armed.
Yeah,
it can mean trying to kill you with a car.
That's correct. 16, even if we're being generous, 16, you had a higher chance as a black American man of being struck by lightning than you did of being shot unarmed. Okay, white men were killed by police officers at a higher rate, as were Hispanic men. We know none of their names because it was a narrative. It was all about the black vote. They jump a narrative, they decide who they're going to go after. In 2016, it happened to be police officers. We're going to see who it is in 2020. This is not about helping to save black lives. You can't tell me that you're focusing on 16 lives when a more unsafe place for a black person to be would be in its mother's womb. We're slaughtering our offspring at a way faster rate when we have more black babies being aborted than born alive in cities like New York. So to me, it's all a farce, and I think it is because the liberal media.
But I mean, you and I are critical of liberal media, but I think you have to have a bit more open-mindedness at the spectrum and the continuum. We've got statistics on the percentages of black men who will be pulled aside in the car. The percentage of men who, when we went to jail in New York City about 8 years ago here with the stop and frisk, when you had over 90% of the folks stop and frisk were young black brothers and brown brothers.
Those are
not killings. Those are not killings.
Right.
They were disproportionately pulling over whites.
No. Oh, not at all.
As they appeared in the crime stats? Yes.
No.
The way
Even
blacks and whites
judge,
appeared in the New York crime stats, they were pulled over less than that. There was more whites pulled over than they appeared in the crime stats.
But you remember the woman who
Bloomberg even conceded that.
Who was the judge when she went through all the statistics and said, "My God, under Bloomberg,
yes,
you had
and she was later fired for incompetence."
No.
She was a boob.
Yeah, no.
I'll say something. I'll ask a question.
Sure.
Black Americans, we make up 13% of the population, and we account for over 50% of all the homicides in this country. Is it possible that we're getting arrested more because we're committing more of the crimes?
Oh no! In terms of getting arrested,
and I'm talking
for
homicides.
crime.
13% of the population.
We're talking about police killing or being pulled over.
Okay, so you're
for driving in the car
and
and so forth. When in terms of the sheer number of homicides, you've got a disproportionate number of poor black people, disproportionately men.
Well, we're disproportionately committing the crimes in this country, all of them, across the board.
No, not all of them. No, not white collar crime. Not Wall Street crime.
I'm talking about
you're talking about
violent crimes.
You're talking about like
white collar crimes.
Yes, absolutely.
You're correct about that.
You're right.
It just sounds like there's a lot of disingenuous agenda
That's my
with
thing.
the left.
It's like just be
and at the
real.
beginning of
But
this,
the
you were
problem
saying,
is, though, you got to have a press that is open enough to deal with all of these issues candidly, and that's what we
press is
don't
obsessed with the Nazi shit. They're obsessed with hate, hate, hate. We live in a racist society. It's way worse than it was in the 70s and the 80s. We've gone backwards in time. And the thing I hate about that narrative, like I've got these friends, Max Hare, John Kidsman, they're Proud Boys. Proud Boys are a multi-racial club. There's gays, Jews in it, and they all love Trump. The DNC is pounding on them. They're a hate group. These guys are getting sentenced next week, Max Hare and John Kinsman. 3.5 years would be best case scenario, could be 15, because Antifa jumped them, and it was like the third Antifa fight of the night. Antifa jumped them and they beat up Antifa. And the court said, you beat them up too much. And because of the Nazi narrative, the jury went, throw the book at him. One of the guys has 4 black kids, and he might not see those kids for 15 years because he fought back after an ambush. And it's the idiotic Nazi narrative.
They call me a Nazi sympathizer. They call me a person that supports Hitler. I mean, you're exactly right. They overuse that term, and the problem is that when you do that, when you're willing to paint such a broad stroke that you start calling black people white supremacists, it becomes very hard to take you seriously.
They call it multiracial white supremacy.
But one of the ironies of Charlottesville was, two things. One, I saw a black man marching with the neo-Nazis when we were being spit at and cussed out.
No.
So I said,
you know why? Because
he was not a neo-Nazi.
No, I didn't say neo-Nazi. He's marching
No,
with
he wasn't.
them.
There was 2 rallies that day. There was the statues.
That's what I was going to say. It was about
and
the
then there was the
statues.
neo-Nazi crap after.
And it was
when
separate.
Trump said there's good people on both sides,
That's what he was talking
about the statue
Yep.
rally.
There were people that were just
No,
there.
but-
There were just
2
there,
rallies.
black people that were there protesting because they didn't want the statue torn down
Yeah,
at all.
But
And
these
then they
folks, I'm
mixed
talking about the
them
one with the
neo-Nazis.
mask and had the live ammunition with the neo-Nazi signs.
What, the Dukes, I mean the Dukes Hazard, the Confederate flag? Or neo-Nazi signs?
It was a combination of Confederate flags and neo-Nazi signs. You know, there's about 29 groups there. So it was a heterogeneous group of right-wing folk willing involved in violent activity.
That whole thing was a bizarre shit show that we talk about way too much.
Antifa to you, see, Antifa actually saved a number of our lives from being attacked in Charlottesville. Because there was all of a sudden, we were standing there, and as they walked by, after about 20 minutes, it got more and more intense. Police pulled back completely.
That's what jeopardized your life.
Police pulled back
The
completely.
mayor trying to cause a scene.
Well, this was a crucial factor. I agree with that. Police saw what was going on and just sat there.
They were
but
told to.
when,
They were told to.
But all of a sudden, when there was a charge with these ammunition mask on and it coming at us, and we're standing there, the rest of the folk are in their clergy costume. I'm dressed just like I'm dressed now, and all of a sudden Antifa comes in swinging to protect us.
Well, let me tell you
Now
something.
you see that kind of self-defense is very important. I think a right to self-defense is crucial.
Sure.
But listen,
It's
I
crucial.
can't
Tell that to the
let's
victims
not,
of Dayton,
let's
Ohio.
not make Antifa sound light, because they are a domestic terror group. They've attacked me multiple times. They've